Okay, cool. Alright, let's get the browser up. Okay. Alright, what's up everybody on YouTube? You got HammerTime 9000X coming at you with another video. Today we're going to talk about some of the biggest and baddest units that we're going to get this month. September is kind of a packed month. We got, I would say a number of pretty strong units. But I'm only going to focus this video on 3 of them. The 3 that I think are the ones that, if you have limited courts, these are the ones you get, and I'll tell you why. But, we'll go through each of them. Starting with the Gorgeous Fest banner, which features Future Warrior Planar. Now, this unit's a sword and a queen, and unfortunately it comes on a banner. The Gorgeous Fest banner has, 1% rate for the unit itself. But the fodder that you get if you don't get the unit you want is the not so great units we've had for a very long time. So kind of the consolation prize of this banner is not so great, but now we have the Super Awakened Printies in the Black Coin shop, which means even selling some of those old units or bumping them up to any 15, any 20 depending on the unit is worthwhile. But at the end of the day, if you're putting 30,000 quartz to guarantee this unit, which might happen to some people, it's something to be considered. But also, this is one of the premier PvP units that we'll have for quite a while. She's a strong DPS, and you can see that when you look at her stats without this pop-up happening. That she's a 15 mil attack unit. Primarily, she's got some fire, she's got some star, very solid resistances. She's a sword unit. Having said that, she isn't limited to swords, and so a lot of people might be gearing her up for Axe, because Axe has that extra attack power when compared to the other weapons. But having said that, you could keep her a sword, you could keep her an axe, and she'll still do tons of damage. But when you're putting in levels in for Mal's allocation for the mana, it's something to consider is what weapon you want to build her under. And so, axe, the only downside is it does take away some speed, but this unit shouldn't have many issues with any of the above. So let's take a quick look at her abilities. Her leader skill, all allies basic stats plus 16%. Always solid to have a all allies leader skill that otherwise helps boost everybody. But what's great about Planar is how she self-buffs in her next few abilities. First, the elemental damage dealt plus 60%. As I mentioned, she has a strong AoE, low cost fire attack, which you can also power up with Kilia's training. She also has her main DPS hit is Star, and so really what you're using her for is Star, but we'll get to that in a second. So having said that, she'll get a lot of extra damage for that if you get her to any 1. Next, for any 5 and any 7, they're both self buffs. And it says if 2 or more humanoids in party attack and crit damage plus 30%, or if 2 are queen type allies in party attack and defense plus 50%. And the nice thing about both of these, if you have both, is that she counts as one of the 2. So you only need one other unit in there to activate these. Very easy conditions, very strong use. So we look at her skills, like I said, she has this low cost AoE. It also decreases some speed of the enemy. Very solid, great for waves. You might need it for a barrier or 2 sometime, but to be honest, this move you probably won't use super often, because what you'll want to do is you'll want to start off with Usagi Sparring Practice. It gives her a self buff that she gets for 5 turns, boosts her basic stats, her crit rate, for 5 turns and her crit damage for 5 turns. And that's just insane when you take a look at the potential and damage that she'll ultimately end up hitting. Because we look at her S skill, her S rank skill that can become an S plus skill, down to 58 star damage. This is her any 3 skill. It hits hard. Not only does it hit hard, but it has the potential of hitting 1 to 3 additional times at C power, which a lot of the older units, their strongest hits were at C power. So just to kind of put that into perspective of how very broken this will ultimately end up being, when you just look at all of her kit together and how much extra boost you're getting, you'll be annihilating units, enemies, PvP, spar space, whatever. This is a very strong unit. It's very, 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 very worth getting if you have the extra quartz. And even so, we can take a look at her magic spells. Her magic spells give her the opportunity to kind of, put in this for barrier. You're never going to use the magic ice or ice though. What I plan to do is I potentially plan to give her mega armor break, to have just in case, depending on the circumstance. I might teach her mega stun, just for any condition that might ultimately be useful. Same with the poison, but for the most part, the only skill I'm going to use is this first, and then repeat of Blazing Shark Flash. On repeat, you're just going to be pounding every 5 turns. And you can see, because she's a Gorgeous Fest unit, she gets all the good buffs and things as she gets higher NE. When you get her past the NE 10 range, she gains a little more resistance, a little more attack, a little more other stats and parameters. Kind of the typical here, but the unique skills SP consumption being -2 is huge, because that helps you with your team building and making sure she can activate every single turn. And having said that, you also get, the Killia's training, extra power buffs and SP for doing that. So all in all, Future Warrior Planar, definitely worth getting. We're going to hop on to the next unit that is the other DPS unit this month that I think is absolutely worth looking at, and that is Formal Valvator. Now, Formal Valvator is also a sword unit, but different symbol. Once again, a 15 million attack unit. He's got the ice/water type attribute that he's primarily good with, and that also is decent with wind. Solid resistances. His abilities, on the other hand, are all selfish. He boosts himself. But when you look at what it is, you see that it's just like so extremely broken for one unit to be buffed the amount that he's buffing himself here with these things. So his leader skill ability, he buffs his attack, defense, HP, and crit damage by 25%. His NE1 makes attack and defense by 20% every turn, up to a max of 100%. NE5, whenever any other ally receives damage, or I think that also includes himself, he'll restore HP by 6% of his own HP. So, you won't be worrying as much about his health because he'll be healing himself. Next, his NE7, if attack buff is active at the start of the turn, he grants buff the special skill damage plus 65, so for 1 turn. He basically always will have an attack buff active at the start of a turn, so this can also just be considered extra damage you're going to be getting. He also has a low cooldown AoE, but it also gives a self buff of defense and res and restores his HP with the star ability. The collapse hall, it ultimately can be a C rank. It's a 65. It does help skill power increase as his own health decreases, but candidly, you're never going to probably be using this move. Then we got our Lunatic Wave, which, bread and butter. Each usage up to 4 times, the skill power will continue to increase. It's a wind attack, restores his HP. It's his any 3, you're going to want to get it. Once again, looking at his skills, probably will end up giving him Mega Armor Break and moving on. He comes on a Fiercest Overlord banner, and the reason that he also is one of the best ones to look at, not only is he one of the strongest, units that we have, but he has a unique, kind of tanking ability. That tanking ability of being able to heal whenever any ally receives damage, which is really nice. He gets all the same benefits. Also gets this SP consumption, which will help with that, getting down to 51, making it easy to use every turn. And he'll also get this at Kilia's training, an SP -3 to get it, to get Lunatic Wave under 50. So he's one you won't be worrying about getting all the SP to, because he has the extra stuff that you can let him learn to make him just an absolute powerhouse. Like you said, he's kind of like all the other Valvatores is, and I think Disgaea does a good job in keeping him kind of consistent. He's been, even in the Tyrant Valve form, in the normal Valve form, he's always had like this heal component, but also he's primarily been a self-buffing type of unit, that gets stronger over time. This guy, if you're looking for a main DPS, he could be your guy, and won't have too many issues.